if the Glock 19 is the Goldilocks for new gun owners, I think that's kind of an interesting. It brings up an interesting situation in California how Glocks are banned. So
Right.
what's the next?
What's the next Goldilocks? You know what's funny is I just had this conversation with somebody last night at a class I was teaching. We had about 24 pretty new shooters. You know, some of them had never shot before. Some of them had not shot in 20 plus years. And I usually have a bunch of Glocks out on the table for people to try. And last night I realized, like, dang, I should probably rotate some of these out with other guns because somebody's going to shoot the Glock, fall in love, and then I'm going to be like, sorry, you can't have it. Yeah. So I put out some Springfield Echelons, and I will say, aside from the fact that it has a magazine disconnect like many of the roster guns do, it's a pretty nice gun, and it's pretty similarly sized. The Springfield Echelon.
I have zero experience with that.
It feels similar to a Glock 19 size-wise. Obviously, the grip angle and other things are different, but it's a similar size. It shoots pretty similarly in my opinion. So I don't know. I think that's going to be a pretty popular full size, especially for the folks who don't want, you know, a grip safety. I'm not a big fan of like the XD9 because of that grip safety. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's on roster. It's a similar size as a Glock 19, but I'm not usually going to be recommending that firearm just because I'm not a big fan of grip safeties. So I think as far as a similar to a Glock, doesn't have an external safety, doesn't have a grip safety, similar size, I think the Echelon's going to be coming up.
What's your beef with grip safeties?
So a couple things. One is if you're carrying that gun for self-defense, I want the gun to go bang no matter how shoddy my grip is out of the holster. Ideally, of course, we want to get a great grip on the gun before we draw. But in the worst moment of your life, maybe that's not happening for you, and I still want your trigger press to work, right? So that's one piece of it. Like anything, you can minimize that risk with training. If you are consistent and you get a great grip out of the holster every single time, you can minimize some of that risk. But if you look at law enforcement body cam footage, a lot of times you will see, even though they're using an outside the waistband, very, very easy to get a good grip on the gun holster, like a Safariland ALS, you'll see horrible grips out of the holster when they have to draw under duress. I see it a lot, so I want to, you know, tread carefully. Some law enforcement agencies do a ton of training, and even in those law enforcement agencies, we see body cam footage with bad grips out of the holster. So to me, especially most folks who are buying a gun for self-defense, they're probably not going to put in the time to get perfect with their grip safety. And then the other thing is that they can get jammed up. So, you know, if you've got a lot of dirt or dust or something, you get in an entangled fight, you're on the ground, you can actually get enough gunk in the back of your grip safety so that it can't be depressed. And then that gun is, you know, a paperweight. It's a bludgeoning device until you can get it cleaned out.
Moving part that could go wrong.
So what you just said in part of that is the real reason to try a bunch of guns and find one that you are comfortable with, because people who are buying one for self-defense, they're not buying one to get into a hobby. They're not buying one to, you know, they're not going to go to the range because it's fun. They're buying something strictly for self-defense.
Yeah.
So they're not going to put the time in.
Yeah, they very well may not.
So
you know,
get a gun that's comfortable in your hand.
Yeah.
You're not going to, because like I said, my whole thing is you can train through any of these problems, and the problems that you're seeing are not as big as perceived. But if you're not going to train through the problems, get the gun that fits best. Get the Cinderella glass slipper gun.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say it's not even what fits best necessarily. It's not about, for me, it's not really about what fits. It's about what that person can consistently make go bang. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you've got a grip safety or even an external safety, that's just one extra thing that you have to train through, that you have to practice a lot. If you've got a gun like a Glock or like anything else that doesn't have an external, you know, manual safety, right? Glocks have plenty of safeties. They're safe. But if you've got a gun that doesn't have a manual external safety, then you're just lowering the risk of you pressing the trigger and it not working, right? You're raising the chances that when you need that gun to go bang, it will go bang. So that's my 2 cents on grip safeties. If you liked that segment, be sure to give us a like, a comment, and go to youtube.com/gunownersradio and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to share us with a friend. Every view counts.